On today's show, well, we got a series in the West, and it looks like we've got a series in the East, too. New York Knicks get their first win in the Eastern Conference Finals over the Pacers. We're going to talk about all of it on today's edition of Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham from Locked On Cavs. You Swipa from Locked On Nuggets, and we had a great game tonight as the New York Knicks erase a 20-point deficit to get a 106-100 win in Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals over the Indiana Pacers. We've got so much to get to with that game, but first, thank you for making this show your first listen today and every day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the show. And if you're watching on YouTube as we get started here, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest content from us. Swipe. I've got to admit, man, Pacers go up 20 in the first half. I am thinking, okay, Pacers, maybe Thunder, maybe Wolves, but they're going to the finals. They're taking a 3-0 lead. The New York Knicks are finished. And then the second half, the Knicks come back. And really, I do have to say for me, and I'm curious where you come out on this. The Pacers had that 20-point lead, and the Knicks were able to cut it to 13, I think it was, going into halftime. Like, it feels a little bit, just like a little bit as if they let the Knicks off the hook right there.
Yeah. Look, 13-point leads in this NBA are nothing, especially at halftime. And when you got a team that's as resilient as the Knicks are, now, again, the Pacers, they've been a resilient team all year, all playoffs. They're the ones, as you remember, in the Cleveland series that it just felt like they just kept coming in waves. And the first two games, that's been the story. But, again, I think the Knicks, both of the games that they lost, they were both in the clutch. I think the Knicks felt like if they could just get the Pacers down to the last 4 minutes of the game and they can get some momentum, they could close the game out. So you're right, 13-point lead at half. But, you get to the fourth quarter. Remember, the Pacers, they were up 8. They get a last-second score. They end the first 3 quarters up 10. I think it was 70-80 going into the fourth quarter. And then from that point on, the New York Knickerbockers, shout out to Karl-Anthony Towns, goes on an incredible run to start the quarter. And something I saw people during the game, Danny, that were like, man, can we hire a new coach in New York and get Thibs out of there? Because they didn't like the decision-making he was making. They didn't like the coaching changes, none of it. But I give Thibs credit right here. Karl-Anthony Towns comes in the game. He has 20 points, 8 rebounds, 3 of 4 from 3, and 6 of 9 from the field in the fourth quarter. And he was a plus 14 in that quarter. And Thibs, sticking to his guys that were winning those minutes, he goes to Miles Bridges, goes to Josh Hart, goes to Mikal Bridges, goes to OG Anunoby, sticks with Karl-Anthony Towns, and they get a 4-point lead, Danny, at some point in time towards the end of the fourth quarter off of an insane step-back 3. So just an all-around great game for the New York Knicks, and man, what a way to fight to stay in the series.
I couldn't be more impressed with what they were able to do. You brought up a lot of things that Tibbs did. I think some of that was his hand being forced a little bit because Towns was in foul trouble throughout this game. Like, I was almost waiting for him to pick up a really silly 5th foul in the third quarter because that's kind of who he's been. He's prone to make those kind of boneheaded mistakes. Jalen Brunson didn't play a lot of this fourth quarter. He was dealing with foul trouble. He had 5 fouls. Miles McBride steps up. He had, I thought, some great minutes for them that really rescued them. And I thought that their offense looked really good defensively. Obviously, not having Brunson out there is one less guy for the Pacers to pick on. And I do think it's easy to look at what Towns did offensively, and he was fantastic. It's easy to look at the Knicks outscoring the Pacers by as many as they did and just say their offense was great. They hit shots. I think that their defense deserves probably a little bit more credit just in the fact that we haven't mentioned it in the first couple of minutes of this podcast, because that Indiana Pacers offense has been so good all postseason long against the Bucks, against the Cavs in the first 2 games of this series. Like, they've been able to particularly when the game has gotten tight, they've been able to still find flow offensively. And in this game, I thought the Knicks did a great job against them defensively in that fourth quarter, particularly.
Yo, and I would say the anchor of that, I'm going to get to Josh Hart in a little bit because I have a great question for you, Danny, I think, or hopefully it's a great question about Josh Hart and why he's so valuable. But look, I got to start with Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges was fighting so hard. Because there's even a possession here, Danny, where Mikal Bridges he tried to make a shot to help Karl-Anthony Towns towards the end, really in that midsection of the fourth, when Cat was doing everything, but Cat had missed 2 straight baskets, and Mikal was just trying to help. And so he gets a shot up, not a good shot, misses it, but like a former all-defense player, former second in DPOY player, sprints down the court to go get back on Tyrese Halliburton, and he just fights through every single screen to make life as difficult as possible for Tyrese Halliburton or for Nesmith or whoever was guarding him. And I actually think, Danny, that he was very much the engine that led to the spark of the second half and really the fourth quarter defensive engine that took over the game. And then on top of that too, Danny, I want everybody to notice this. This is what I love about basketball. So they were playing chess with each other, Rick Carlisle and Thibs. And so what the New York Knicks were doing is that whenever they try to put Karl-Anthony Towns in the pick and roll, it's not just about what's happening, Danny, in the front of the pick and roll with Cat as a drop defender, because Hallie got a bucket off of that. But it's also the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. So what Thibs does is now every time they try to do a pick and roll with Karl-Anthony Towns to get a switch, he would send a third defender into the pick and roll to automatically be there to switch, and that way he could take over the defensive assignment on Tyrese Halliburton. So what happened is that kept Karl-Anthony Towns out of the action. So the Rick Carlisle on the other end responds by whoever the third player is, whoever that player is that they are guarding. They ran the pick and roll. Third player, which is Miles McBride, would come over to come help. But then the great next thing is they would set a back screen on Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, when Towns tries to recover, Miles Turner is sprinting to the basket for an open look, but then Cat has to step in front of him or it's an easy layup, and he gets his 5th foul. You saw some dynamic coaching down the stretch of that game, Danny, and it just so happened that the New York Knicks did just enough on the defensive end with that 4-defender personnel with Cat to get the job done. It was a spectacular fourth quarter of basketball decision-making by both teams.
Yes, this was a great playoff game. And you mentioned 13 points being nothing as far as a lead goes in today's NBA. And you're right, I would go so far as to say 20 points is nothing. Like if you're down by 20 points at halftime, that is not some impossible hill to climb in a second half. What they did defensively was really, really good. I thought that Tyrese Halliburton probably needed to be a little bit more aggressive at times than he was. Thought Pascal Siakam was kind of taken out of the game by the Knicks defensively for stretches, not obviously the whole night, but for stretches in the second half. Thought he got really quiet, and just overall, they took the Pacers out of the flow. When you watch this Pacers team, when they are at their best, there's no question that they are the team dictating the style the game is being played, dictating, and I hate that they're called the Pacers because it's dictating the pace. And I hate saying that because I just don't like how it feels coming out of my mouth. But they dictate the style of basketball. And the New York Knicks were the one to do that tonight. And I think it's so easy to say, well, whoever does that is going to be the team that you feel best about winning that night. And that's true. But I think that's a really, really difficult thing to do. And New York did it so well in so many different ways on Sunday night.
Yeah, look, and also I want to give credit to Jalen Brunson. We'll talk about him, I imagine, more in the second segment. But, I think you got to be a malleable star, in this league. And you got to realize, especially when you have deficiencies like Brunson and Cat do, that you can't always be there every single possession. And sometimes your team needs you to be on the sideline. And Brunson, I think, allowed for Thibs to do his job. And because of it, the team got back in the game, got the lead. And Brunson was able to make the clutch, nice little left-handed shot over the top to extend the lead as well. And then he made both free throws to end the game for them. So Brunson, not a great game for him relative to the rest of the playoff. but I think he did enough when they needed him to do something for them to win the game today.
Right. And I do think, too, there is something to be said about finding a way to get a win when your best player doesn't have his best game. Like that can be something. And I don't know where this series is going to go from here. We're going to talk about this a bunch moving forward. But I do think there's something to be said about building some confidence by saying, hey, Jalen didn't have a great game tonight, but the Knicks still found a way to win. Imagine when he does have a good game, maybe in game 4, what things could look like. So I do want to talk about that a little bit. Plus, we got to talk about Josh Hart. We're going to do that straight ahead right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's show brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track of all that cash. That's where Monarch Money comes in. They'll be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money, not just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending right in one place. You can stop just managing your money and you can start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, even plan for those long-term goals that I know you have. Plus, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Thank you again for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else, talking about the New York Knicks bringing the Eastern Conference Finals against the Indiana Pacers within a game. They now trail 2-1. Game 4 will be on Tuesday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. We'll look to even up the series then. Jalen Brunson, as we mentioned in the first segment, didn't have his best game of the postseason of this series. He dealt with foul trouble for much of it, finished with 5 fouls. I believe that he was a minus when he was on the floor. I do think that having Miles McBride out there for New York was a boost at certain points. But overall, as I was kind of getting out of the last segment, I do think it can be a boost as a team when you win a game where your best player is not at his best.
Yeah, that. And like I said, I wanted to make sure we brought up Cat, but also Josh Hart. Josh Hart, I believe in the fourth quarter, I want to say Josh Hart was a plus 14, plus 16 in the fourth quarter. And then you look at what you got from Karl-Anthony Towns. Karl-Anthony Towns was a plus 14 in that quarter. And Danny, I think it means the world when you can have a guard or a wing who is quote unquote undersized, but because of the way they play, you would never know. You never know how much bigger the opponent is because he always plays with such consistent effort, intelligence, and assertiveness. The way Josh Hart, and I know people look at his stat line and you're like, Swipa, like, why are you making a big deal about it? Like, Josh Hart didn't have crazy numbers, 8 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. But I want y'all to realize when he's getting his rebounds, Danny, because on the last stretches of the game, the person closing out those possessions was Josh Hart because he is battling over the top of screens as a defender. He's an excellent help side defender. Danny, there was a possession that led, I think, to a Miles Turner 3 that went off the backboard. That was a 24-second violation, and it was Mikal Bridges, OG, Josh Hart, Miles McBride. They were flying around defensively, close out, help. And they're doing everything they can. And a lot of this is Josh, because when you have a player that you're able to throw at anybody on the floor, whether it's a guard or a big, that's why players like Josh Hart are like my favorite in the sport. And what he did today was so important because him even being able to defend and rebound at this level in the Eastern Conference Finals is what makes you win championship. Josh Hart is a championship level player. And today, there were multiple possessions that he won for the Knicks that would never show up in the box score because of how committed he was, not just to doing his job, but to helping to recover if his teammates needed him to do so as well. Again, man, 10 rebounds for a 6'4" guard. I asked this question on Twitter, Danny. Josh Hart is the best 6'4" under rebounder in the NBA since when? A lot of people said Russell Westbrook. I think it's him and Russ for guards that are that size and able to do that kind of job on the glass.
Yeah, it's hard to think of somebody in this era other than Russ that's like in this conversation. I mean, Russ obviously, I don't think is the same caliber of athlete right now that he was at his peak
Sure.
with OKC,
Yeah.
but he's still a good rebounder. And I mean, when he was at his athletic peak with the Thunder back when he was winning an MVP and just in that conversation, like he was arguably the best athlete in basketball, and that's part of the reason why he could go get those rebounds. And I think with Josh it's different because not only is he undersized, but he's not in the same conversation as Russ in terms of athleticism either. Like he can go up and get the ball, but he's not doing it the way that Russ Westbrook could. Like it was just a different type of rebound. And I think when you see Josh do this, it feels so impactful because it feels as if these rebounds for him come in the biggest moments. Like you saw the one near the end of the game, and then he goes and makes the free throws where he goes up, he gets fouled. Like that's a huge rebound. And I don't remember if it was Stan Van Gundy or Reggie Miller that called it just like a man's rebound that he goes and gets it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to disagree with that term. Like that just, it feels accurate. And I think the other thing worth bringing up here, and that we didn't mention in the first segment, is the Knicks made a change to their starting lineup where Josh Hart was not in it. And for us to be having this conversation about him after he is part of the move where they put Mitchell Robinson in the starting lineup and bring him off the bench, I think says a lot about who he is as a player too.
Yeah, man. Like I said, Leon Rose and World Wide West, they had a vision in what they wanted to create in New York. And it's crazy to me because, Danny, we talked about this all year, but the idea that the New York Knicks, we knew they were going to struggle defensively in the playoffs, but the whole concept was that they would have enough around Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns to mitigate what they might not be able to do super well. And you know what? It's so funny. We haven't even brought up Mitchell Robinson today. Like, Mitchell Robinson, not the best game, but he also has some really important possessions in this game as well. And them being able to turn to Mitch and Miles and close with those lineups, that just gives them so much versatility, and it makes them a really dangerous basketball team. The other day, I got a chance to talk a lot about this Pacers team. I think the Pacers are special. I think they're going to be – I still think they have the upper hand in the series, and they should feel confident. I think that Hallie's going to have a better game next game. I think that Pascal, Nesmith, who had a little bit of an injury concern today, they're going to have better games in Game 4. It's probably going to be the turning point of the series one way or the other. But the Knicks deserve a lot of credit, man. They have been able to find ways to win time and time and time again. And through this playoff, whether versus Detroit versus Boston, Jalen Brunson was the reason why they were getting a lot of those victories. Because of his over-the-top shot making, his driving, creating contact on his way to the rim, and he was hitting a timely bucket. But today, no Brunson. It's really the Karl-Anthony Towns fourth quarter offensive show, and then all you needed was Miles, Mikal, OG, and Josh to kind of facilitate and do their job around him, and they earned, I think, their toughest win of the playoffs, and that includes the Boston Celtics series, because at least in those games, I think Brunson was going haywire in a lot of those, and you could see it. The bucket was in his hand. The ball was in his hand. The momentum was there. Heavy isolation basketball. He can finish those possessions. But today, they didn't have a chance to go to their bread and butter until really the last two possessions of the game, and they had to depend on teamwork and team defense, and they won them the game, man. It was such a beautiful display of basketball in the fourth quarter by the Knicks.
Well, and I think part of the difference, too, between this win and the games they had against Boston where they came back from down 20, where we see the Celtics blow leads like that all the time. And part of it is because they shoot so many threes that they have been susceptible to those cold stretches. And part of that was the defense the Knicks were playing against them. But part of it was the Celtics weren't taking or generating great shots. This just felt different. Like this felt like that the Knicks had to work harder to erase this type of deficit, and the fact that it is in the conference finals, I think, is the other thing that puts it over the edge for me. Now, of course, the Knicks trail 2-1. On the other side of things, the OKC Thunder lead the Minnesota Timberwolves 2-1. Going to spend the rest of the show talking about which of those two teams has a better chance to come back and maybe, just maybe, punch their ticket to the NBA Finals. We'll do that next right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Swipa, so we've got two series, both 2-1, which is my favorite thing in basketball. And I think this is more so in the Western Conference series right now. But when the underdog is at home and they're down 2-1 and they are essentially playing a game for their series, for their season in game 4, that's what we've got in Minnesota OKC. It's a little bit different in New York and Indy just because the Knicks already lost 2 games at home. And I think that makes this maybe even a little bit more stressful, a little bit of a more difficult situation for them to deal with. But I am very excited for these game 4s. I do think that and this is not some crazy controversial take, like I don't think either team is going to come back and win the series, but if one of them does, which one do you think has a better chance or a better blueprint of doing so?
So I want to answer this in 2 parts, Danny, because I feel like the context here is important. I think the Wolves are better than the Pacers and the Knicks. But OKC is better than the Wolves, Pacers, and Knicks. And I think that the Wolves have more talent. I even would say Anthony Edwards plus that crew, I feel, are just a great basketball team. Now, maybe the Pacers can beat the Wolves. I probably feel a little bit differently about that in a final series, so we'll have to see. But the issue
kind
is
of
the
a
Wolves
styles
playing
make fights thing.
Right. But the issue is the Wolves playing OKC. And I'm sorry, like OKC has 2 All-NBA players for a reason, the MVP. They got 2 all-defense players. They got 6 players I think would qualify for all-defense if they're all eligible. And I just think they have the coach of the year. They're a 68-win team, one of the best teams ever, top 3 defense for me minimum ever. I just think that it has to be the Knicks because the Knicks at least they have a path for them. It's like, all right, win game 4, and we think we win game 4, we can win 2 of the next 3 games because we have Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, and they might be able to out-offense the Pacers down the stretch of a 4th quarter. And we have the defenders we can throw at them as well. We have at least have proof of concept. The issue is, man, Anthony Edwards is great. He was my 5th place first team All-NBA vote this year for the NBA award. So I think Ant is a great player. Julius had a great playoff. Rudy Gobert, I think, is one of the 10 best defenders of all time. And then you got Dante DiVincenzo. You get Naj Reid. You get Nickeil Alexander-Walker, veteran Mike Conley, Jaden McDaniel. They got guys. You even saw, hey, Terrence Shannon Jr., welcome to the party. You know what I mean? They got Jalen Clark off the bench too. They got players. But you playing versus the Alex Caruso. And I don't know if you've seen the Alex Caruso this playoff. He's been tremendous. Now, again, he fouls a lot. I understand. I don't want to ignore that, Wolves fan. But at the end of the day, he's a great player. He does a lot of really important things on a possession-by-possession basis. I'm going to put my money on the Knicks that they have the better chance. But I also, if you told me the Minnesota did, I'd be like, man, they got the team to do it. But, man, I feel like OKC would have to play really below themselves for that to happen, which is possible as well.
Well, and I also think the thing that the Knicks have in their favor is they can talk themselves into it a little bit easier because the Pacers are a good team. They're a very good team. No one's saying otherwise, obviously. But the Knicks can say, well, we should have won game 1. We very easily could have won game 2. We did win game 3 in Indianapolis. Like, they have proof of concept. They can go on the road and win a game there where the Minnesota Timberwolves don't have that they can do that in the postseason against the Thunder. They don't have the proof they can go win a game in OKC in the playoffs, where the Knicks can say, hey, we've won a game on the road already. We only really need to win one more game on the road. And the Wolves are going to have to there's no avenue for them to do this without winning a road game. So that is part of it too. And I think OKC's been, and they've been a much better playoff basketball team at home than they have been on the road. They split with Denver on the road.
Yeah.
They won probably closer games than they should have been in Memphis in that first round. They're 3-3 in their 6 road games. So I think there's a little bit of a drop off on who they are inside OKC versus who they are on the road. And I think that matters a little bit, but they only have to win home games. And I do worry about Minnesota being able to do that. And I think that the one thing too, that we haven't mentioned is Aaron Nesmith rolled his ankle pretty good in this game.
Yeah,
He has been a very, very big part of Indiana's success throughout this postseason run. He's been fantastic for them. If he's not 100%, and I would expect somebody like him to try and play through it if he can, but if he's not 100%, I wonder what that does to the Pacers on both ends of the floor and how that could be something that maybe doesn't get talked about enough. Maybe it's not mentioned on the injury report. Maybe he doesn't miss any time, but you can tell he's not 100%. And I wonder what that could do for the Knicks.
Well, one of the things that makes the Pacers so good is that, Nesmith is down. It's a drop-off. But, hey, Obi Toppin, we need more minutes from you. Who's a plus 19 tonight, I might add. And then on top of that,
in
Ben
like
Shepherd.
14 minutes, too. He didn't play much.
Right. Yeah, 14 minutes. But Ben Shepherd is another one. Like, Ben Shepherd also has, like, some qualities that make him a very good player. And then, obviously, Benny Mathurin. Like, they have options to go to. But, again, they're not the Nesmith experience. And on top of that, there's something to chemistry. Like, Nesmith's developed a lot of chemistry with the Pacers starters. So him and Nembhard, especially defensively, they kind of make their whole system work for them. So you're absolutely right that if Nesmith is going to be ailed by an ankle at all, then that could change the outcome of the series in some way because, not having role players really matters at this level. But I do expect for the Pacers, Game 4 is really, like I said, going to be a war of attrition because I think that game has the potential of being another fourth quarter knockdown, drag-out fight. The Pacers are going to want to win that game because if you get a 3-1 lead versus the Knicks, the Pacers, I think, have the deeper team. They have a fresher team. They'll be able to withstand going 6 or 7 with the roster they have. And on top of that, they feel like it's going to come back on you to make up for that, in New York. And we believe we can win in New York, whenever we need to get there. So I do think, bro, that the Knicks should feel good. But the only way I think they really feel good about their chances if they win Game 4. Because for me, it all comes down to that. If you don't win Game 4, you don't have the dogs and the horses to be able to come back versus that Pacers team.
That was my thinking in picking this series, and I believe I picked the Pacers in 6 games. I don't remember if it was 5 or 6, but that the Knicks were just not going to be able to keep up with the tempo that the Pacers play with for a full 7-game series. And if they do not win Game 4, they are not going to be able to do that for 3 straight games. Like, if the Knicks win this series, it's going to be in 7 games. I do not see any way in which they win the next 3 and they win this in 6 and go to the finals. Like, if New York is going to win this series, it will be in 7 games. That's not what I would pick to happen. I think the Pacers are going to win. I think on the other side, I think the Thunder are probably going to win in 6 games, maybe 5 games. We'll see what happens on Monday. Very interested in how they respond from losing by 40-plus points. There's very little carryover from game to game when you have a blowout in the playoffs. I think that's worth noting too. But I think that we are still on track for an OKC Indiana NBA Finals.
And a clash of styles as well. Now, for Knicks fans, I do want the most for Knicks fans. I mean, they're so excited about this team. They've renamed streets, at least for the duration of the playoffs, like within New York after the players. So, you definitely want to see the series continue. No, I think I picked it in 6 for Pacers. I don't think it's blowout, though. I don't think these are blowout games for the Pacers.
No.
There might be one blowout in there, but for the most part, these are all going to be close games. And I just think the Pacers are just a better overall basketball team. And Danny, you know this, and this is what made Cleveland so good in the regular season. Like, it's one thing your starters outplay their starters, but it's another thing when you got 4 to 6 other players on the roster, including Thomas Bryant, where you can go to find something. And if you got a team that has multiple options off their bench to help them to spark a little series of runs and to get momentum back on their side, that makes it so difficult to deal with them. And right now, at least in today, the players that played for the Knicks, they all did something positive to add to the overall experience of the team today. And Jalen Brunson was really the only player that I think really underperformed throughout the duration of the game. But you needed that to secure this victory. And I'm saying the Pacers, they just have so much more room for margin. I think that's going to matter. And that's why I still think it's going to be Pacers in 6. But like I said, I want to see what Game 4 does. Because Game 4 is what could tell the story between this being a 7-game series or a possible 6-game series.
That is absolutely correct. Game 4 will be a very exciting one, both in the East and, of course, in the West, happening on Monday night. Make sure you keep it locked right here with Locked On NBA for everything, not just with the games, but everything in the basketball world as well. Thank you for hanging out with us. Very much appreciate it. As we get out of here, make sure you like this video on YouTube, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else as well. And we will be back tomorrow talking more about the NBA.